So hello everyone, welcome to this another video on Internet of Things. We have been doing this module 4, and let us continue with this module. So in this module, till now we have done 3 videos. The first video was on data handling, the next video was on introduction to data analysis, and then we did the third video which was on cloud computing. So in this video we are going to look at cloud computing, in which sensors that we use to sense our environment, right, they will be provided as a service through the cloud. So we have talked about software as a service, we have talked about infrastructure or platform as a service. Now we are going to talk about sensing capabilities as a service in this video. So the topic of this video is Sensor Cloud, and this video will be based on this paper called Sensor Cloud, a cloud of virtual sensors by Madria, Kumar and Dalvi from Missouri University of Science and Technology. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin with the content of this video. So Sensor Cloud. Okay, before we go any further and talk about Sensor Cloud, we have to once again talk about WSN. So we have studied WSN in a previous video. So when talking about WSN, we saw many applications that WSN may have. For example, it may have application in healthcare, it may have application in military defense, and then we talked about this application with an example of trying to track animals in Kaziranga. Okay, but then when talking about WSN, we talked about a few constraint, a few disadvantages, all right, that WSN may have. So this constraint, this limitation in WSN are limitations in terms of memory, energy, computation power, communication ability, scalability, and management of the large amount of data that comes in through this WSN. All right. So these are very constrained devices. We already talked about this. These are very low-end devices that are energy constrained in the sense that they run on batteries. They have very low-end processor, so they cannot do very high-end computation. They have limited memory. So all these constraints are there. But then these sensor devices, they generate lots of data. All right. So we have talked about how the increase in data being generated by IoT device, this trend of increase in data generation by IoT device, we talked about this in this video on data handling. Okay, so yeah, that is something else that we have, right? Generation of a large amount of data. Now what do we have? We have this requirement that this large amount of data needs to be processed and it needs to be stored. So in order to process this data, we need high-end computation capability, and in order to store this data, we need massive storage. All right. So once we have this high-end capability to process this data, okay, we would be able to apply some kind of a analysis algorithm. So it may be online analysis or offline analysis. So online analysis, I don't mean online in the sense like we talk about online. Okay, when I'm connected to the internet, for example, I say that I am online. That is not what online means in terms of the data analysis. Okay, in data analysis, online means that we are processing the data as the data comes in. We are doing real-time analysis on the data. So when a data point arrives in our analysis software, okay, we process it on the go. Okay, compare that to offline analysis. So you have seen things like in artificial neural network, we have things like batch gradient descent, where we iterate over the same data over and over again. So one iteration is called one epoch of the data. So this concept of having data stored in some storage and then iterating over this data over and over again, that is called offline. Our data is stored somewhere and we are analyzing it over there. Okay, that is called offline analysis. Now online analysis is when data comes in, we are analyzing that on the go. Okay, so this concept of having multiple epoch over the data, that is not there in case of online analysis. So that is the difference between offline and online analysis. So in WSN we are generating lots of data, and we may choose to have online analysis or offline analysis with this data. Okay, and what is the analysis that we may do? We may have some very complex model that can discover very interesting patterns. Okay, so it is generally agreed upon that the more complex your model is, then the more properly your model would be able to fit your data. So there are of course problem with this thing. We have things like overfitting, but let us not go into that. But complexity in terms of this data analysis model would be this: a neural network, for example, with a large number of hidden layer and a large number of nodes, is more complex than a neural network with a lesser number of hidden layers or a lesser number of nodes, for example. Okay, so that is what we have. We may choose to have very complex data analysis model in order to discover interesting patterns in our data. Now there is a caveat in using complex models. All right, the thing is that the more complex a model is, the more computation needs to be done in training the model and to use the model. Okay, so we have this problem. Essentially that we need high computation and we need a massive amount of storage. Now cloud computing is a promising technology that provides a flexible stack of massive computing, storage and software services in a scalable and virtualized manner at low cost. Now cloud computing is a service that can provide us this massive amount of computation and storage that we need. Okay, and apart from this storage and computation, cloud computing also gives us software services. So like it may give us ready-made software that we can use to run analysis, right? So this is what we have seen some disadvantages of WSN, then we talked about a few requirements of WSN, and then we can see that cloud computing can satisfy those requirements, these requirements of high processing capability and high storage demand. Okay, so in recent year we have this cloud sensor cloud infrastructure is becoming popular. And what can sensor cloud do? It can provide us an open, flexible and reconfigurable platform for several monitoring and controlling application. So sensor cloud is what is coming up, and we are going to use sensor cloud. This will combine WSN and cloud computing to provide sensor as a service. All right, so let's talk more about this. A sensor cloud is a heterogeneous computing environment spread in a wide geographical area that brings together multiple WSNs consisting of different sensors. Each WSN can have a different owner. The sensor cloud then virtualizes the wireless sensor and provides sensing as a service to user. So a few things in here. A sensor cloud is a heterogeneous computing environment. Heterogeneous in the sense that I will have multiple physical WSN will come together and form a sensor cloud. And in these different WSNs, I may have different types of sensors. Okay, I may have different type of sensor nodes. So all these differences, all this heterogeneity will be there in our environment, in our computing environment. So these WSNs will also be spread over a wide geographical area. Okay, so each WSN that comes together and form this sensor cloud, each WSN might be owned by a different owner. Okay, the sensor cloud will do what? It will take this physical sensor and then it will virtualize some virtual sensor, okay, that will use data from this physical sensor, and this virtual sensor will be provided to the user. Now user buys sensing services on demand from the cloud, sensor cloud. Use of large scale sensor networks become affordable with ease of use. So as a application developer, as a user of sensor cloud, I can now use these WSNs, this sensor cloud, right? So instead of worrying about how to deploy this WSN, how to manage this WSN, this deployment and management of sensor network will be taken care of by sensor cloud. I as an application developer is interested in what? I am interested in just sensing something in the environment. Say I am interested in sensing temperature at Gormur. Okay, so I need not worry about how the sensors are deployed. I need not worry about how they are managed, what is the WSN, what is the communication protocol being used, what is the networking technology. I need not worry about all this. This will be done by the sensor cloud provider. I just need to worry about getting this sensing data, which will be provided not directly by the physical sensor but by using some virtual sensor. We will talk about virtual sensor in details soon. Okay, so because of this I can now use large scale network that are provided to me by this sensor cloud with ease. Okay, and because I don't have to buy this WSN, I don't have to deploy, I don't have to manage, this becomes affordable. And because of affordable and also easy to use, in the sense I don't have to do this management and all these things. Alright, so this is what we have. A sensor cloud is composed of virtual sensor built on top of physical wireless sensor, which users automatically and users automatically and dynamically can provision and deprovision on the basis of applications demand. So a sensor cloud core will contain virtual sensor. Alright, so a sensor cloud will give me virtual sensor which will give me data from some actual physical sensor. Okay, so physical sensor will be sent, physical sensors data will be sent to sensor cloud. Sensor cloud will take this data and create some kind of a virtual sensor that will reside in my cloud. Okay, and now as an application developer I will get this sense data from this virtual sensor instead of directly getting it from the physical sensor. Okay, now like any other service in cloud computing, okay, for example when talking about infrastructure as a service, we talked about how processing capability, for example, can be provisioned and deprovisioned, okay, automatically according to my application's demand. So when I need, my application would need more processing, I would be given more processors. When I no longer need more processing, the processors that were given to me would be taken away. Okay, so based on how much processing I used, my billing will be done. So similarly here also, based on what sensing I need to do, my virtual sensors will be allocated to me, provisioned to me, and when I no longer need that virtual sensor, it will be deprovisioned from me. For example, let me explain this with an with a recent example. Okay, let us say I am trying to track a cyclone that is coming in through Bay of Bengal and then moving from South Bangladesh to North Bangladesh to Assam. Okay, say in Borpeta. Okay, so what will happen is I will try to use sensors in order to track this cyclone. So initially I will be tracking in South Bangladesh. Okay, so what will happen, I will need a virtual sensor that gets its data from sensor networks in South Bangladesh. Okay, so that will be provisioned to me. My application which is going to track the cyclone will ask to be provisioned data from South Bangladesh. So once this cyclone moves over to North Bangladesh, for example, my sensor that were allocated from South Bangladesh, that needs to be deprovisioned, and now sensors from North Bangladesh needs to be provisioned to me. Later on, if it moves to Assam, say Borpeta, then these sensors which were there in uh, North Bangladesh, that needs to be deprovisioned, and then sensors from Borpeta needs to be provisioned to me. So this provisioning, deprovisioning, this has to be automatic. All right, like in case of processing capability that we talked about in YAS, this was automatic. So this here also needs to be automatic, based on applications demand. Okay, so I cannot have some person sitting in some office with a computer who is going to manually provision and deprovision these things to me. Okay, so this is what I have. This is sensor cloud. Okay, so why are we going to use sensor cloud? We are going to talk about 3 advantages of sensor cloud in this video. Okay, first, it enables better sensor management capability. User can use and control their view of WSN with standard function for a variety of parameters such as region of interest, sampling frequency, latency, and security. So management from the user's point of view, management of this WSN becomes easier. Okay, user is interested simply in sensing. Okay, I as an application developer, I am only interested in sensing in some region. So what will I do? I will use some function. Hold on. Okay, I will use some function in order to specify what is the region where I am going to do this sensing. Okay, what is the frequency at which I am going to do the sampling, what is my sampling rate, and then what is the latency that I am willing to tolerate, what will be my security protocol. So all this thing at a very high level I will be able to specify using some standard function. Okay, now how this security protocol, for example, that I specify, how will this be implemented on the actual WSN is no longer something that I have to manage. Okay, I say I am going to do this sensing at Jorhat. So how will that sensing, how will that data from Jorhat actually be sent to me? That is something that I don't have to manage. So this will be managed by sensor cloud provider. Okay, so I have better sensor management capability as an end user. I don't have to worry about lots of things. So this is my advantage number 1. Second advantage is data captured by WSN can be shared among multiple users, which reduces the overall cost of data collection for both the system and user. Because data reusability in WSN is transparent to the sensor cloud, redundant data capture is reduced, thereby increasing efficiency. Now say I'm going to use this example a lot. Okay, I'm going to sense temperature at Gormur. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to ask for some sensor in the sensor cloud that is going to use some physical sensor at Gormur to create a virtual sensor in the cloud, and I am going to use this data from the virtual sensor. Now that is my application, right? My application accesses temperature data from Gormur. Say some other person, he or she is also trying to access this data, temperature data of Gormur. So instead of giving a new physical sensor for this second user, what will happen in case of sensor cloud is this one sensor that is in Gormur will be used to give temperature data to both of us, right? So one physical sensor will be used to give data to 2 different virtual sensors that are used by these 2 different users. So with this, what will happen? One actual physical sensor, one WSN, one physical sensor or a network of this physical sensor will be used by multiple user, maybe simultaneously, maybe not simultaneously. But then because of this thing, because multiple user is using the same sensor, the overall cost for both of us, for both the sensor cloud provider and the user, for both of us the cost decreases, and also this redundancy decreases. Okay, data needs to be collected only once, and that can be used by two users, so it need not be collected twice. So this reduces redundancy. Okay, so this, because of this decrease in redundancy and because of this overall efficiency increase, okay, uh, this this is a good thing. Okay, the overall efficiency increases. Now one thing, uh, the fact that multiple users are using the same physical sensor is transparent to the user, in the sense that I as a user, okay, am sensing data from Gormur. Now some other user is also sensing data from Gormur. Both of us are using different virtual sensor, and these two different virtual sensor is using the same physical sensor to collect data. This need not bother me. Okay, I am only interested in getting data from Gormur. The fact that some other person is also getting that data from the same physical sensor, that is something that I need not be concerned about. Okay, so this is what I have. This fact that multiple users are using the same physical sensor, this is transparent to us. I cannot see this. Alright, so this is my second advantage. The third advantage is regarding the type of sensor used. The user does not need to worry about low level details such as which type of modes, MOTES, modes mean sensor nodes, and sensors are used and how to configure them. The sensor cloud automatically handle this detail. So what is the type of sensor used? Okay, now I am trying to sense temperature. Is the temperature generated sensed through a DHT11? Is it generated through uh, uh, some thermoresistor? I don't need to worry about this. Okay, how, what is the actual physical implementation need not bother me. I am only interested in getting the temperature data. Okay, and the temperature data will be provided to me through some virtual sensor. So the actual physical implementation, this low level detail of how this WSN and how this sensor nodes and sensor are actually managed or how they are deployed, all these low level details are need not bother me. Okay, I can sense the data directly, and that is the only thing that I am interested in as an application developer. So all these details of implementation, management, etc., they are transparent to me. Okay, I cannot see them. So this is my advantage number 3. Now let us talk about virtual cloud. Before I read this out, let us try to understand virtual sensor. Let us try to understand virtual sensor with this diagram. So I have multiple WSNs over here. Each of these WSN have different sensors. So this sensor, this WSN and all these sensors will come together to create this collaborative WSN. So this different WSN comes together and they form a bigger WSN that works as one. Okay, so these different WSN will have different sensors. These different sensor will come together to form virtual sensor. Okay, this is the sensor cloud layer. So I have this virtual sensor network broker. This is virtual sensor node 1, node 2, node n. This is VSN broker. So as a application developer, I am going to use this virtual sensor. Okay, this virtual sensor is going to use this physical sensor that are deployed through some WSN. Okay, now things may caching would be done. So because of that, I will have some kind of a storage. Okay, so this is my architecture of virtual sensor. What is a virtual sensor? A virtual sensor is an emulation of a physical sensor that obtains its data from underlying physical sensor. So a virtual sensor is a simulated sensor on the cloud. Okay, a virtual sensor resides on the cloud, and this sensor gets its data from actual physical sensor that are deployed in the environment. A virtual sensor provides a customized view to user using distribution and location transparency. So the how the sensors are distributed, where they are located, the actual physical details need not bother me. I am saying I need to sense temperature at Gormur. I am going to get the temperature from some sensor in Gormod. How they are distributed, how these sensors are deployed, they are transparent to me. Okay, so I will be only provided some customized view, some of this region. Okay, the actual physical view is not something that should bother me, and is not something that is given to me. The virtual sensor contain metadata about the physical sensors and user currently holding that virtual sensor. So this virtual sensor, okay, that is there in the cloud, will contain metadata of what are all the different physical sensor that that is giving data to this virtual sensor. So this metadata would be there, and who is the user that is using this virtual sensor. So that would also be there. Okay. Additionally, virtual sensor can have data processing code which can be used to process data in response to complex queries from the user. So uh, this is one more advantage of virtual sensor. So virtual sensor will be there in our cloud, and in cloud we will have high processing capability, high storage, and all these things. So because of this high processing capability, we can run very complicated high-end code. Okay, so high-end programs may high demanding programs may be there in our virtual sensor, and this program will run, and when as a user, when I have some query, I can make that query, and the program in this virtual sensor will run and give me answers to that query. Okay, this query may be anything. What is the temperature, etc. But then what is the temperature is a very simple query. I may have more complicated query, like one sensor may have humidity and temperature. Okay, so from that I may query what is the apparent temperature. Okay, so I may have even more complicated queries. So a some code may be there in our virtual sensor that will run and will serve this query. Now, why is this an advantage in WSN, and why not in uh, why is this an advantage in sensor cloud, and why not in WSN? In WSN, our devices were very constrained. Okay, so they had very limited processing capability. Because of this, those devices cannot run very complicated code. Okay, but then because our sensor cloud, this virtual sensor, they reside in the cloud, and cloud and this will be probably in this computing machines. Okay, this processors, this computers will be in some data center that will have very high end processing capability. Okay, now we can run this code. Okay, which was not possible in these constrained devices. So this is one more advantage of virtual sensor. It has capability of running complicated code. Okay, so there are four configurations in virtual sensor. There is one to many, many to one, many to many, and derived. Let us talk about the first three: one to many, many to one, and many to many. We will talk about derived configuration a bit later. So one to many is this: I have this one sensor, and from one sensor, physical sensor, and from this one physical sensor, different virtual sensor will get their data. Okay, then many to one is I have this many different physical sensor, and from this many different physical sensor, they are sending data to one physical sensor. Okay, so one virtual sensor. So one virtual sensor will get its data from multiple physical sensor. In case of one to many, one physical sensor sends its data to multiple virtual sensor. In many to one, multiple physical sensor sends its data to one virtual sensor. And in many to many, multiple sensor will sends its data to multiple virtual sensor. Okay, so one physical sensor, in many to many, one physical sensor will send its data to multiple virtual sensor, and one virtual sensor will get its data from multiple physical sensor. All right, so see, these two sensors are sending data to this physical sensor. These three are sending data, These two physical sensor data are sending data to this virtual sensor. These three physical sensor are sending data to this virtual sensor. So many physical sensor are sending data to many virtual sensor. So this is many-to-many configuration. Let us talk a bit more about this. In one-to-many configuration, one physical sensor corresponds to many virtual sensors. So one physical sensor sends its data to many virtual sensors. Although individual user own the virtual image, the underlying physical sensor is shared among all the virtual sensor accessing it. So I, as an individual user, will have one virtual sensor that is given to me. Okay, so I will own one virtual sensor, but then the physical sensor will be shared among multiple users. So this physical sensor that is giving data to this many different virtual sensor, okay, will be shared among all these virtual sensors users. So I have there are lots of different users. All of these users will have their own dedicated virtual sensor, but all these different virtual sensor will use the same physical sensor in the lower layer. Okay, the middleware computes the physical sensor sampling duration and frequency by taking into account all the user. So the middleware essentially is the sensor cloud. Okay, so we will talk about what are the different layers, including what is middleware very soon. So there is this layer in our architecture that is going to do all this management. Okay, is going to interface this user with the sensor. So the middleware is going to compute the physical sensor sampling duration and frequency by taking into account all the users. So what this means is this: say I have three users. Three users are trying to access. Three users will be given three different virtual sensor, right? And all these virtual sensors, say, are trying to access the same physical sensor. Now let me explain this with an example. There are, say, three different users who are trying to get data of temperature data of Gormut. Okay, so say one user is trying to do sampling once per second, another user is trying to do sampling once per minute, and the third user is trying to access data sample once every hour. So these three users, once per second, per minute, per hour. So what is the rate at which the sampling needs to be done? It needs to be sampled once per second, right? Because we have to serve this user who is requesting data once per second. So in order to serve him, the physical sensor needs to sense data once per second. Sampling has to be done once per second. So based on what are all the different users, what are all their requirements, based on all this, the middleware has to compute what is the frequency at which the sampling has to be done. Okay, and then what it is going to do whenever a new user joins, or whenever a user leaves the system. Okay, this needs to be recalculated. For example, I had three users. So one was sampling once per second, once per minute, and once per hour. So if this user who was sampling once per second, he or she leaves the system, then what will happen? Now I can sample once per minute, right? Because that is the highest frequency at which the sampling has to be done. So this system is dynamic in the sense that when users leave or join, this sampling frequency, this sampling duration, this will change. Okay, now at some later point of time, say this once per second user leaves, so I am now sampling at once per minute. So at a later point of time, a new user comes in who is requesting data to be sensed once every 10 seconds. Now what is the rate at which I have to sample? I have to sample once every 10 seconds to serve this new user. So this is what I have. Because this rate at which the sampling is changing, okay, this system is dynamic. So this is one-to-many configuration. Let us next talk about many-to-one configuration. In this configuration, the entire geographical area would be divided into regions, and each region will have one or more physical sensor and sensor network. Okay, so yeah, let me explain once again. Let me explain this with an example. Say my sensor cloud provides sensing capability in all of Assam. So I will have different sensing WSN sensor networks spread all across over Assam. So say I have a few WSN in Tezpur, a few in Nagaon, a few in Jorhat, and a few WSN in Dibrugarh. Okay. Now, as a user, when I try to access temperature data from Jorhat, for example, okay, then what will happen? All these WSN, all these different WSN data in Jorhat, they will get activated. Now, each of these WSN will have different kind of sensors. Okay, maybe sensors to detect light, sensors to detect wind, sensors to detect temperature. All right, so all these different type of sensors will be there. Now, what is the phenomenon that I am interested in sensing? I am interested in sensing temperature. So only those sensor which can sense this phenomenon, this temperature, those will get activated. Okay, and then there will be different WSN. This temperature sensor in all these different WSN will get activated, and then they will send data to me, which will be aggregated by some virtual sensor. Okay, so when a user requires aggregated data of specific phenomena from a region, all underlying WSN switch on with the respective phenomena enabled, and the user has access to the aggregated data from this WSN. So this says that when I try to sense temperature in all of Jorhat, so all these different sensors will get activated, all these different temperature sensor will get activated. Their data will be sent to the virtual sensor which is there in sensor cloud, and then this data will be aggregated, and this aggregated data, aggregated means combined, this data will be combined, and this combined data will be provided to the sensor cloud user. Okay, so this is what I have. Many physical sensor in all of Jorhat. This many physical sensor might be there in different WSN. So all of them will send their data into one virtual sensor. This is many to one configuration. Okay, previously it was one to many. Okay, one sensor was sending data to many virtual sensors. So there were 3 user, once per second, once per minute, and once per hour. They were using this. There were many virtual sensor using one physical sensor. Here I have many physical sensor sending data to one virtual sensor. Okay, what is the sampling rate at which I have to sample? So all these physical sensor will have to sample the data at which I require the virtual sensor to sample. Say I have this requirement that my virtual sensor has to sample data once every second. Then all the different physical sensor that are contributing data to this virtual sensor, all of them have to sample once every second. Now this configuration can be used to provide fault tolerance if the underlying physical sensor fail. Okay, so we will talk about fault tolerance at the end of this video. Okay, so when we talk about quality of service, QoS, but then understand this in many to one, because we have lots of different sensors contributing data to one sensor. Okay, even if one sensor fail, we still have some amount of tolerance. Okay, we still can carry on with our sensing. Unlike had there been only one sensor instead of many sensor contributing to my virtual sensor, okay, then what would have happened? Had this one sensor failed, then I would no longer be able to do any sensing. But now that I have multiple sensors, even if one sensor fail, I can continue with this sensing. Alright. A virtual sensor communicates with a number of underlying physical sensor, and it shows the aggregate view of the data to the user. So a virtual sensor will take its data from multiple physical sensor. It will aggregate, combine this data and give this data to the user. When virtual sensor fail, the WSN facing layer of the sensor cloud captures the failure, and the virtual sensor communicates it. A working sensor which provides data within the QoS limits can gather the required data. So yeah, if a physical sensor fail, okay, there will be my architecture will have some layer which faces this sensor network. Okay, so that layer will first detect that there has been a failure. Okay, so what will happen in case of failure? First, the user will be notified if necessary. Okay, so the user should be able to take some action based on what to do in case sensor fail. So according to application logic, the user will take some action. Okay, but even if one sensor fail in this many to one configuration, there are many physical sensor sending data to one virtual sensor. So even if one sensor fail, if my QoS requirement, okay, quality requirement is not very high, then I can still use data from other sensors, right? Let me give an example. Say I have created a website in which I am going to display temperature data of Jorhat. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to use all these different temperature data. Okay, then all these different I am going to use all these different temperature sensor. So all these different temperature sensor in Jorhat is going to give me the data, and I am going to use maybe the average of all this data. Okay, so what will happen, even if one sensor fail, I can use the remaining sensor in order to display my data. My requirement is not that high. Even if I have a error of 1 degree, it is not going to matter. But say I have some safety equipment in some nuclear power plant. Okay, I don't know how nuclear power plant works, but I have this hope that it is very mission critical. Okay, so if even if one sensor fail in a nuclear power plant, it might be dangerous. So in that, my QoS requirement will be high. So if one sensor fail in a nuclear power plant, the user should be alerted, and then the user should take some remedy action. Okay, so this is QoS limit. Okay, and based on QoS limit, even if one sensor fail, what is the action that needs to be taken, that will be decided. Okay, the virtual sensor adapts to a change in topology and WSN facing layer and is transparent to the user. So the virtual sensor, even if the underlying topology of the physical sensor it changes, okay, previously say it was mesh topology, now it is star topology. Okay, even if the topology changes, the virtual sensor will still get his data, and I as a user, I am not interested in the topology. Okay, I am only interested in sensing data from the environment. Okay, so this is transparent to me. I need not worry about this thing. I do not even see this thing. Okay, that the topology has changed, some other thing in the WSN facing layer has changed. All these are transparent to me. Okay, so previously say some other management mechanism is used to manage this WSN, now some other management mechanism is used. So management of WSN is a component of the WSN facing layer. Okay, so this change did not bother me. Okay, so yeah, this is what I have. This is many to one configuration. Next is many to many configuration. In many to many configuration, this is a combination of one to many and many to one. In the sense, one sensor is going to give its data to many different virtual sensor, and many to one in the sense, one virtual sensor is going to take data from many different physical sensor. So a physical sensor can correspond to many virtual sensor, and it can also be a part of the network that provides aggregate data to a single virtual sensor. So yeah, this is what I have. Alright, one physical sensor sending data to many virtual sensor, and one physical sensor is part of several physical sensor that together sends their data to one virtual sensor. This is one to many and many to one combined together to create many to many configuration. The final configuration is this derived configuration. A derived configuration refers to a versatile configuration of virtual sensors derived from a combination of multiple physical sensors. This configuration can be seen as a generalization of the other three configuration, though the difference lies in the type of physical sensor with which a virtual sensor communicates. This derived configuration uh, is a generalization. Okay, all the other three configuration, all these are concepts from all these are used to create this configuration. Okay, so the difference here between derived and other form is this. In the other form, okay, in this other three configurations that we talked about, if I have a virtual sensor to detect temperature, the physical sensor that will be there will be temperature sensor. So temperature sensor will come together to actual physical temperature sensors will come together to create a virtual temperature sensor. Alright, so this is there in the other three. In derived, what is going to happen? Let us talk about this. Let us talk about this with an example. Okay, say in my environment I don't have a proximity sensor. Okay, so instead I have light sensors. So what am I going to do? I am going to use this light sensor to derive some kind of a proximity sensor. Okay, so proximity sensor I can buy from market, right? So there is PIR sensor, but then let us say I don't have PIR sensor deployed in my WSN, in my area, in my region of interest. So since I don't have PIR sensor, what to do? I am going to derive this PIR sensor using other available sensors that are there. So what is there? There is light sensor. I am using this light sensor to derive a proximity sensor. In case of the other configuration, in case of many to one, for example, what would have happened? These light sensors, they would have come together to create a more complex, a bigger light sensor. Okay, but here these light sensors are coming together to derive a sensor that does not exist. We are creating a new virtual sensor by using this different kind of physical sensor. Okay, so this was an example where the sensor is not deployed. Okay, here is an example where the sensor does not exist. So say I am trying to sense whether some habitat is safe to live in. Okay, so I am going to have this safe habitat monitor sensor. So this kind of sensor does not exist. Okay, there is no sensor that can tell us whether some place is safe to live in. So what am I going to do? I am going to create this sensor, and I am going to create this sensor by using this temperature and humidity sensor. I am going to combine this temperature and humidity sensor, and by combining this I am going to derive this new sensor. This new sensor is going to be safe habitat monitoring sensor. Okay, so this is an example where I am using a derived configuration in order to do some sensing of complex phenomenon for which the sensor does not even exist. Okay, so two places where I can use derived configuration. One is where the sensor is not available in my region of interest, and the other is when I am trying to sense some complex phenomenon for which sensor does not exist. So this is a use of derived configuration. Okay. While in the derived configuration, the virtual sensor communicates with multiple sensor types. So multiple sensor types, for example, temperature sensor, humidity sensor, they come together to create this safe habitat monitoring sensor. In the other three sensor, the virtual sensor communicates with the same type of sensor. So in this many to one, many to many, one to many, what will happen? The same type of sensor, say I have this virtual sensor is my temperature sensor. So this virtual temperature sensor will use physical temperature sensor. So in derived, that does not happen. In derived, my virtual sensor is something else, but then the physical sensor is something else. Alright, this different physical sensor will be used to create some different virtual sensor. This virtual sensor will be derived from this physical sensor. Derived sensor can be used in two ways. First, to visually sense visually sense complex phenomenon, and second, to substitute for sensors that aren't physically deployed. Okay, so this is what we talked about. to virtually sense complex phenomenon. So here some complex phenomenon, whether some habitat is safe to live in, is being sensed. Here some sensor is not present, proximity sensor is not present. So we are using this derived sensor to substitute for this physical sensor. So yeah, this is derived configuration. We have seen 4 different configurations of sensor cloud, of virtual sensors. Okay, they are this 4: one to many to one, many to many, and derived configurations. Let us now talk about this layered cloud architecture. Okay, so this paper that we have been referencing they have given us a architecture. It is a 3-layered architecture that has a client centric layer. This interface, this is the layer between the sensor cloud and the client. Then the middleware, this is the sensor cloud, and the sensor centric layer, this is the layer between the sensor, between the WSN and the sensor cloud. Okay, so we have this 3 layer. We will look at this diagram very soon, but then let us talk about this first. The client centric layer acts as a gateway between the sensor cloud and the user. So it is the interface between the sensor cloud and the user. It is a collection of components that facilitate and manage the interaction between the user and the core of the sensor cloud, that is your virtual sensor. So the main component of sensor cloud is of course virtual sensor. So we are going to use virtual sensor to do this actual sensing. Okay, so client centric layer is going to do what? It is going to manage this it will have components that is going to allow and manage this interaction between client and the virtual sensor. So there are a few components in here. User interface. So user interface can be dashboard, it can be session management component. User interface can be dashboard, it can be APIs. Okay, usually it will be API using which our application is going to use this virtual sensor. Then there is component for session management. This is similar to the session management that is there in TCP or in HTTP. Okay, so this permission, authentication of user, then establishment of pipes, all this will be managed by this session management. Then membership management, whether this user, what is the permission level that this user have, what is the authorization that this user have. Then user repository components, so who are all these user, all these things will have, there will be different components to manage all these things. These components are part of the client centric layer. Then we have middleware layer. The middleware layer acts as the intermediary between the client centric layer and the sensor centric layer and connects the client request with the data collected from the sensor. So this middleware resides between client layer and the sensor centric layer. Okay, so middleware is responsible for essentially this taking data from the sensor centric layer, okay, from the physical sensor, and through some virtual sensor it will provide this data to the end user. So this interface between user and physical sensor is mainly managed by this middleware. The middleware performs a number of functions such as provision management. Okay, so provision management, like in normal cloud computing, what are all the virtual sensor that will be provisioned to the user, who should be provisioned what, and to deprovision once if I need new sensing to be done at some place. Okay, so virtual sensor as and when required should be given to me. So this provisioning of virtual sensor needs to be managed. Once I am done using this virtual sensor, they should be deprovisioned. So this is done by the provision management module. Then I have image lifecycle module. Okay, so this image of this virtual sensor, that will have configuration file, that will have all this code that is required to get this data from sensor cloud and aggregate it and present it to me. Okay, so this will reside together in some container, okay, in some zip or in some ISO or in some that kind of a archive file. Okay, So this needs to be loaded, this needs to be run, and once it is run, this needs to be stored back. So this life cycle of this image has to be managed, and then finally billing has to be managed. Okay, so how much to charge the user? Okay, so say in normal cloud computing, okay, billing is very easy. For example, if I use Amazon's Creative Cloud, there will be a fixed charge that I will have to pay. Or if I say I need 100 GB in Google Drive, there is a fixed charge per month that I will have to pay. Okay. Or if in case of IaaS, okay, if I am using one processor, say I have to pay X amount of money. Okay. If I am using 5 processor, I have to pay uh, Y amount of money. Okay, so all these are fixed, and this is very simple to do. Okay, but in case of this cloud sensor cloud, billing is a is more complicated because of this reason. See, in WSN there will be lots of different sensors, right? uh, and how does WSN work? Each of this node is a sensing node, and each of this node, okay, sensor node also acts as a router. So other sensor nodes data is routed through each of the sensor node. So say I am trying to sense data from some far away sensor that needs to do multiple hops in this WSN. So it needs to travel through lots of different sensor nodes. Okay, and compare that with I am trying to use a sensor which is very near my gateway, so it does not have to do lots of hops. Okay, so if I am using a sensor which is far away, then I should be charged more than if I am using a sensor that is nearby. So if I am using sensors which are nearby, I should be charged less. Okay, because I am ultimately using less resources. I am using less networking, all these sensor nodes. They will have to do less routing of my data. So because of this factor, billing is a bit more complicated in sensor cloud compared to other paradigms of cloud computing. Now, one more thing with respect to billing is this WSN owner, right? They give this WSN, and then this WSN owner own this WSN, and they provide their service through this cloud sensor cloud. So this WSN owner also needs to be paid, right? So there are lots of factors based on which the different owners have to be paid. Okay, for example, say this thing, uh, the sensor that is used more, say the WSN that is being used more, whose sensors are being used more, that owner has to be paid more money. Okay, that is one factor. But then there are other factors as well. So I was talking about these nodes being uh, uh, sensor as well as routers, right? So if some node is doing lots of routing of data, so that sensor's owner has to be paid more than some sensor that is doing less routing. So there are lots of these kind of factors that has to be taken care of when paying this WSN owner as well. So when billing the user, there are lots of factors that need to be considered, and when paying the WSN owner, there are lots of factors that needs to be considered. So this is what I have. There will be a billing module, but then the billing module is there in other forms of cloud computing as well. But then the billing module here is more complicated than your normal cloud computer. Okay, there is a paper by Dr. Sudhir Misra of IIT Kharagpur. In that paper, he talks in details about this billing, this cost of sensor cloud. So if you are interested in this topic, you can go ahead and see that paper. Okay. So next layer is our sensor centric layer. So we have talked about client centric layer, we have talked about middleware. Next is our sensor centric layer. The sensor centric layer directly communicates with the physical sensor using the WSN registration, WSN maintenance, and data collection component. So there are three components mainly in this sensor centric layer. There is the WSN registration, we will talk about this. There will be a component to manage these WSNs, okay, and then there will be a component that is going to actually collect the data from the physical sensor and give it to the virtual sensor. So this will be in sensor centric layer. So now let us talk about WSN registration component. When network owner want to provide service through the service sensor cloud interface, they need to register their WSN. Okay. So the sensor cloud verify the physical sensor and their capability. We should also provide location information. So yeah, when some WSN owner, okay, now that WSN owner has some WSN and he or she now wants to make available this WSN services through this sensor cloud. So that person, this owner will have to register his WSN or her WSN with the sensor cloud. Okay. So when registering, the owner will have to provide what are the type of sensor that is there, what are all the capabilities of this different sensor, and then what are the services that these sensors can provide, this WSN can provide, and what is the location at which all these WSNs are located. Okay, so all this needs to be provided during the registration phase. Once these are provided by this WSN, the sensor cloud service provider needs to actually verify whether the data that is given to me by this sensor cloud provider is actually true. Okay, so this verification also needs to be done. So in this paper that we are referencing, in this architecture, they do not consider mobile sensor nodes. Okay, so the sensor nodes are fixed. So this location information, that is your latitude, longitude, what is the region ID, and what is the cluster ID, this needs to be given in order to, these are sufficient location information. Okay, so all this data will be cataloged and this will be used to provide a list of services to the user. So because of this data that is given by this sensor, by this WSN owner to the sensor cloud, okay, from this data we will know what is the services, what is the capability that this underlying sensor network have. Okay, and based on this list of services, we can have different type of virtual sensor. Okay, so this is sensor centric layer. So we have seen three layers. Okay, we have already talked about almost everything that you will see here, but let us talk about this diagram now. Okay, so there is this client centric layer, there is middleware, and there is this sensor centric layer. In client centric layer, we have user interface, membership management, and session management modules that we already talked about. There is user repository, and then there is this service catalog. We talked about how services, capabilities, etc. will be registered, okay, by this WSN owner, and based on that, what are the services that this sensor cloud can provide us, that will be listed by this sensor cloud provider. So this service list will be provided in some service catalog. So this idea of having a service catalog is based on this idea of service oriented architecture. We talked about this in the, what is service oriented architecture in our very first module. Okay, so this is one more component. This component service catalog resides in the border of middleware and client centric layer. Okay, then we talked about what is provision management, lifecycle management, and what is billing management. There will be a temporary data storage. This temporary data storage will be used to do caching of data. Okay, why is caching necessary? Say I have some phenomenon that I need to sense once every 5 minutes. Okay, So this thing does not change to rapidly say uh, how much sunlight is falling on the ground. This is not a very mission critical uh, application. Okay, so I can do some sensing once every 5 minutes. Say sensing is very expensive, so I will sense once every 5 minutes. So for say I have done one sensing at 12 p.m. The next sensing I am going to do at 12:05 p.m. Okay, after 5 minutes. Say now some user joins our sensor cloud at 12:03. Okay, I did my last sensing at 12, users joins at 12:03, and the next sensing will be done at 12:05. So this user will request data. So instead of sensing again, what I am going to do is I am going to send the data from my last sensing. Okay, the last time that I sensed at 12, this data user joins at 12:03. So I am going to send the data that I sensed at 12. So in order to give this cached data to the user, I need to have some storage, temporary storage, where I am going to save this data. So because of that reason, I need some temporary data storage. Alright, apart from this is all the modules in the middleware. So below that I will have this sensor centric layer where I will have this data collection module, WSN maintenance module, and WSN registration module. We talked about all this. And below this sensor centric layer will be the actual sensor WSN network and the actual sensor nodes. Okay, and they will be owned by some WSN provider. So this diagram explains this layered sensor cloud architecture. Okay, there are 3 layers and all these different components. So yeah, this is layered sensor cloud architecture. So now let us talk about the final topic in this video. A sensor cloud manages quality of service at 2 levels, at the sensor centric layer and at the virtual sensor layer. Now sensor centric layer QoS management is well studied. There are lots of standard algorithm. In this layer we are going to do management of network related issue like node failure, network partitioning, packet loss. So what to do in case of node failure, what to do in case of network partitioning, what to do in case I have packet loss. Okay, all these issues, networking related issue, are well studied. We talked about this in general when we were talking about WSN. So this is one level of quality of service that needs to be provided. So how to handle this thing needs to be talked about. Okay, but then a more complicated thing that we are really interested in. Okay, so this sensor centric layer problem, this networking related issues have been talked about. There are lots of algorithms. This is not something specific to sensor cloud. Okay, this problem is there in WSN as well, and so the solutions that are there in WSN, those same solution we can apply over here. But then this QoS, quality of service, with regards to virtual sensor layer, okay, that is something very specific to our sensor cloud. Okay, so virtual sensor quality will be provided on top of sensor centric layer. Okay, so there will be this network layer which will be managed by the sensor centric layer. So above this we will have this virtual sensor layer. So this is where this quality has to be provided, that needs to be managed by this sensor cloud. So quality has to be provided with respect to reliability, accuracy, and coverage. What is the area that I am covering? Am I covering all the region of interest, all the places where I am interested in sensing? Am I covering all these places? How accurate is my data? How reliable is my network? Okay, all these things are QoS parameters that needs to be addressed by this sensor cloud. I am not going to use this word guarantee. I should use maybe had I been a marketing guy, I would have said it needs to be guaranteed, but then uh, it is not always possible to guarantee things. Anyway, uh, let us talk more about quality. Uh, the many-to-one virtual sensor configuration can be used to provide data reliability via aggregation. So, reliability of data can be to some extent provided through aggregation of data in many-to-one configuration. In many-to-one configuration, we are going to have lots of different physical sensors that are going to combine their data together and give me aggregated data through this virtual sensor. Okay, so even if one sensor is giving me outliers, is giving me wrong data, my other sensor are going to give me accurate data, and by looking at all these different sensor, I can know if some sensor is giving me wrong data. So this is how some level of data reliability can be provided. Okay, accuracy, how much accuracy is there? So this depends on spatial and temporal correlation between the different sensors. Okay, so say once again let us use this example of sensing temperature at Gormur. Okay, so I am going to sense temperature at Gormur. In order to verify whether my temperature at Gormur that I am getting from this sensor is correct, I may choose to use a sensor at Lahoti. Okay, so there is a high level of correlation, spatial correlation. Spatial means in space, area, location, correlation. Okay, between my sensor at Gormur and my sensor at Lahoti. Compare that to my sensor in Gormur with the sensor in Torazan. Okay, there will be less correlation between Gormur and Torazan. There will be a high correlation between Gormur and Lahoti. So, if my nearby sensor has high spatial correlation, then I can use the nearby sensor to give me means I can use data from nearby sensor to verify whether my sensor's data is accurate enough. But then only spatial correlation being nearby is not enough. Okay, so temporal correlation is also necessary. Okay, say my sensor at Gormur is sensing data once every minute, and my sensor at Lahoti is sensing data once every day. Okay, so there is very less temporal correlation. Temporal means in time. There is less temporal correlation between these two sensor in that case. So what will happen is I will not get a accurate view whether my sensor is acting properly by my sensor at Gormur is acting properly. By looking at this sensor at Lahoti, I will not get an accurate view of this. Okay, so this is what I have. If I have a high spatial and temporal correlation, okay, so then I can use this highly correlated sensor, this sensor who is near me physically and who has done this sensing at a near amount of time. Okay, if I have such kind of sensor with high spatial and temporal correlation, I can use those kind of sensor to check whether my sensor, my main sensor of interest, this sensor at Gormur, is giving me accurate data. Okay, so based on this I can guarantee accuracy to some extent, up to some limit. Okay, so this is how some quality of service limit is satisfied by using this aggregated data that is brought from nearby sensor. So nearby in two sense. Okay, it has to be nearby physically, it has to be nearby in time. So that is what I have. Now the virtual sensor layer can also switch between configuration, so from one to many to many to many. So if I have one sensor providing data to different virtual sensor, from there I will go to what? I will go to many different sensor providing data to many different sensor. So instead of one sensor giving me data, now that I have many sensor giving me data, my quality of data, my accuracy, I will be better able to verify whether my accuracy is good or not. So doing all this, okay, improves the quality of data, and based on this, this quality is assured. Okay, so this is how quality of service is done in Sensor Cloud. So I have this diagram. This basically shows how physical data is combined to create aggregated data, and different aggregated data can be combined to create more aggregated data. So this is how aggregated data from different wireless sensor networks, different nodes will be aggregated together, and this aggregated data will be given to me. And in this aggregated data, instead of giving me data from one sensor which may be faulty, lots of different sensors being faulty together is there is less probability of that. Okay, so this is quality of service in sensor data. Okay, so yeah, in this video we have talked about first we started by talking about what is some problems with WSN. Then we talked about some requirements that WSN, this high volume of data that WSN is generating, what are some requirements that have arisen out of this high volume of data being generated. Then we talked about how cloud computing can satisfy this requirement. Okay, then we have been talking about Sensor Cloud, this ability to provide sensing as a service. All right, so we talked about what is Sensor Cloud, we talked about why sensor clouds are required, some advantages. Then we talked about what is virtual sensor, different configurations of virtual sensor, that is one to many, many to one, many to many, and derived configuration. Okay, we talked in details about these things. Then we talked about this 3-layered architecture, okay, that has this client centric layer, this middleware, and the sensor centric layer. And finally we have talked about how quality of service is done in Sensor Cloud. So this brings to an end this topic on Sensor Cloud. I hope you understood everything that we have talked about. Okay, this ends our module 4 as well. Okay, hold on, sorry. So this brings to an end this module. Okay, in our next module we are going to look at these topics, but then I am not going to create videos for our next module. Okay, your module 5, you have already created videos by yourself, you have done very good as a presentation, not everybody of course, okay, most of you, but then I am going to say this, I should not discourage people, but some of you did not put that much effort that you could have put. Okay, don't give excuses. If you are able to browse Facebook, you should not give this excuse that I was unable to do research because of lockdown and unavailability of internet. Anyway, so most of you, okay, have done, more than 90% of you have done very good presentation on this topic with good case studies, with a study of protocol. Okay, so I suggest that all of you go through all these videos that are in this playlist. Okay, so you have to know in general about all these different case studies. Okay, all these different things you have to know in general about all of them. So go through all these videos and encourage your friends by liking these videos. Okay, so this is module 5, the final module in our course. So with this we have come to the end of our course. Okay, so yeah, we have come to the end of our course. I hope you understood everything properly, not only in this video but in everything that we have learned till now, I hope you had as much fun learning this course as I had teaching it. Okay, in case you have any doubt, you can of course uh, contact me through WhatsApp, through call, through by writing your doubts in the comment section below, or through Google Classroom. Okay, so reach out if in case you have any doubt, in case you have any doubt regarding uh, how to approach the final exam and all these things. Okay, uh, now see, this semester has been bizarre. I am 31 years old and never in my life have I seen anything as weird as this pandemic that has been going on. Okay, my parents, they have never seen anything like this. So maybe in 1920 there was Spanish flu, so that was something big, but then nobody that I know has seen that. Okay, so it's a very bizarre experience for all of us. Stay safe. The lockdown has ended, but the pandemic, uh, coronavirus does not know that the lockdown has ended and it needs to go away. Okay, so the pandemic did not end. Okay, be safe. Follow all the protocols that the government has laid out. That is the base that we can do. Now that vaccine has not yet come to the market. Okay, now just because you are young and healthy, it does not mean that all our relatives are young and healthy. Okay, there will might be people that we love, that loves us, who might suffer if we are negligent. So even I am guilty of that. I go out. Okay, so I should not be preaching too much, but then be safe, take care of your family. uh, and one more thing that I'm going to say, see, all over the world there is a recession that is coming in because of this coronavirus, mainly accelerated by this coronavirus. But then a recession was coming in. Some of you are going to face a bit of problem initially in your career. Okay, may face, I hope you won't, but then even if you do, be persistent. Okay, I know people who when I studied started engineering, my super senior batch, they just passed out. It was in 2008. Okay, there was a very big recession back in 2008. So I have seen my super senior, they got placement, but one person who is from Assam, he got placement, but then he never got the joining letter. Okay, so that was very sad for him, but then he was persistent. He did his MTech, and eventually now he is an ACS officer. So he's going to maybe become DC hopefully someday. So he ended up doing good, and in his batch other people also ended up doing good. So be persistent, don't give up. Okay, if things do not look good in the beginning, eventually if you keep on doing things, it will turn good, believe me. Okay, I have seen personally some hardship, and then I have seen good days as well. So be persistent, that is the most important thing. Don't give up. If you give up, then good thing will never happen. Okay, if I never play a video game, I can never win that video game. That was a bad example. Anyway, I will not uh, teach you class physically again. This is your final semester. In this semester you were supposed to have fun together. You were supposed to spend time with your friends. You uh, should have had some sort of a farewell, some party, but then this is a once in a 100-year thing. So you are very unlucky. Okay, so uh, sorry about that, but then this is what it is. This is fate. Okay, so best of luck with your career, best of luck with your life in general, not only career. Be happy. Okay, do anything that you want, find your passion. That is what people say. Be happy and best of luck. Okay, I will not teach you any subject anymore, but if you come to college, do meet me. I will be there. And most importantly, thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for the love and the respect that you have given me. I have taught you 3 subjects till now. This IoT is one subject, then I did cloud computing and this advanced computer architecture. So I had lots of fun teaching you guys. Uh, your batch was good, okay, in general, but then there is a bit of discoordination among your batch. So solve that. Have fun. Okay. Best of luck, and thank you for watching this video. Best of luck.